They told millions, don't save, don't plan for the future. The end is near. While their followers waited for Armageddon, their leaders were quietly building a financial empire in Ireland. Today we are exposing a damning scandal in the Watchtower history, one hidden in plain sight, buried in the Irish corporate records. By the end of this investigation, you will not see the Watchtower Society the same again. Why? You will see why a religion that preaches the end of the world invested billions for its own future.
And the Watchtower under consideration today was entitled, "Your Deliverance is Getting Near." And I'm sure you, like me, rejoice in the hope. You rejoice to think about the blessings that will come right after the Great Tribulation and Armageddon. How encouraging to know that the world, which to many seems out of control, is soon nearing its end. The grand finale is close. How close? Well, we all recall the stirring concluding talk at this year's regional convention. It summed it up in one word: imminent.
If you're new here, this is Tommy Dr. K, a channel where we put dangerous doctrines under a microscope and confront religious manipulation and abuse with clarity, courage, and precision. This is Dr. K, a theologian, international consultant, and a business scholar. I'm a holder of 6 degrees, including 2 PhDs and a degree in theology with distinction. If you're into deep dives that cut through deception, subscribe so that you don't miss what is coming. I have a lot in store for you. So let's get right into it. Let's start at the root. Why would a religion that demands sacrifice from its followers spend more than $1 billion on real estate and infrastructure? What are they preparing for? The answer begins with what the Watchtowers taught about money, ambition, and the end of the world. Now, to understand the scope of this hypocrisy, you first need to know what the Jehovah's Witnesses taught about money and the future. A former JW said, they told us, why go to university when Armageddon is coming in few years? I gave up my scholarship. I'm 45 now, working minimum wage.
They discourage any university education that is not in the trades.
So you need just enough to go by because, the world's going to end anyway.
Now, this isn't just a religious zeal. It's a deliberate strategy. Financial dependence is a classical crowd control mechanism. When people have no savings, no education, no career prospects, they are trapped. But while millions lived a simple life, as were advised and taught by the governing body, their leaders made different choices. Choices that reveal that they never believed their own prophecies. But before we unpack the Irish financial empire, you have to see first what they were building in America. If the end is near, why did they spend tens of millions of dollars on long-term infrastructure? If they truly believed that the end was imminent, why did they invest so heavily in permanent infrastructure? Here is your answer, so that the message in this video can be spread to more people. While telling their followers not to plan beyond next year, Watchtower was planning 50 years ahead. A former Bethelite said, I worked on the Warwick project. Everything was built for permanence. We weren't planning for Armageddon. We were planning for the next century. But where did all the money go? For years, nobody knew. I started digging into the Irish corporate records. What I found in Ireland isn't just hypocrisy. It's evidence of a sophisticated international financial operation. But why Ireland? What did they set up there in Ireland that they couldn't do in the US? Now, Ireland is a global magnet of international finance. And here is exactly why Watchtower chose it for their secret financial empire. As you can see on the screen there, here is why they set their international financial operations in Ireland. Ireland, in terms of corporate tax, it is only 12.5%. and can be as low as 2% with legal setups. When you look at the US, that is 21% federal and state taxes, average 25%. What is the impact if they invested $500 million? They would spend $62.5 million in Ireland versus $125 million in the US. So you can see what sort of advantage that they have there. The EU market. Ireland has full access to the 27 countries. The US has none. Impact: easier to invest and diversify assets. Financial privacy. Strong corporate confidentiality in Ireland versus the US, where extensive public disclosure is required. Impact on the 500 million. Leadership: beneficiaries can remain hidden, so they don't need to be disclosed because there's a strong corporate confidentiality in Ireland. Let's look at double tax treaties. In Ireland, yes, avoid double taxation on the same income. In the US, yes, but it's less advantageous. Impact on the 500 million. Money stays in the Watchtower hands. So you can see why they chose Ireland. So let's look at an example. If Watchtower made 500 million in investment income, US taxes would be equal to $125 million. That's 25%. But in Ireland, this would just be $62.5 million at 12.5%. And as little as $10 million, that is huge. So in Ireland, they're using legal loopholes. Big tech companies, Google, Apple, and many others have set operations in Ireland for precisely the same reason. A lot of multi-billion-dollar companies, the big boys of the industry of money, have set operations in Ireland for the same reason. Now, these are the people that teach members to be aware of materialism. Most of their videos, I've watched a number of videos, the issue of materialism, the issue of focusing on spiritual paradise and not to a physical paradise here on earth is very, very strong, including the recent 2025 Pure Worship Convention, which may still be going on in different parts of the world. A number of videos, a number of talks emphasized not to focus on materialism, on having a physical paradise on earth. Focus on the spiritual paradise.
The question is, to whom are we listening? Jehovah and Jesus tell us to be content now with a spiritual paradise and to concentrate on our life-saving preaching work, and that they will provide a physical paradise later. 1 Peter 2:11 indicates that we should view ourselves as temporary residents who are just passing through this old system and headed for the real life in the new world.
They've talked about temptations to materialism. They've abused the sacred life of Jesus in the gospel to preach cult control strategies.
Tell these stones
What was the third
to
temptation?
become loaves of
Let's
bread.
read it together from the book of Luke. It's Luke chapter 4. And let's read Luke chapter 4, verses 5 through 7. There we read, "So he brought him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the inhabited earth in an instant of time. Then the devil said to him, I will give you all this authority and their glory, because it has been handed over to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. If you, therefore, do an act of worship before me, it will all be yours." But what about today? How does Satan tempt us today? Well, Satan may try to offer us tempting opportunities to enjoy material things. Again, Satan takes a truth and twists it into a lie. The truth is that Jehovah has promised all of us an abundance of material things in the new system. But for us to receive those blessings, we need to do Jehovah's will, we need to endure the hardships of the last days, and yes, we need to wait. We have to wait for Jehovah's appointed time to experience the complete fulfillment of these promises. So Satan tries to twist this truth by saying,
In the new system, you'll have everything you want materially. But why wait? Just take a shortcut. Skip the self-sacrifice. You could have your own little paradise right now.
Here is a clip from Stephen Lett. You may have watched it, but it's here just to emphasize the point. Listen to what Stephen Lett said, something that doesn't even make sense. This was said during the COVID period, approximately 5 years ago. And he said, "We are living in the final part of the last days. Undoubtedly, the final part of the last days, shortly before the last days of the last days." What does that even mean? Here is Stephen Lett.
Jesus made it clear at Luke 21:11 that pestilence would be part of the sign of the last days. And in Revelation chapter 6, the ride of the fourth horseman includes mention of deadly plague. So the events unfolding around us are making clearer than ever that we're living in the final part of the last days, undoubtedly the final part of the final part of the last days, shortly before the last day.
And this is not the first time that he was saying it. Here is another clip where he said something similar to this.
Now, our third example of the voice of our fine shepherd is at Matthew chapter 6, and we're going to read verses 19 and 20. "Stop storing up for yourselves treasures on the earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. Rather, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal." We're told that our focus should be on spiritual things and not on physical things. And this is especially true when thinking about where we are in the stream of time, in the final part of the final part of the last days.
And in this video, this is where he emphasized telling the members about spiritual paradise, that we should be content with spiritual paradise and not to begin to focus on physical paradise here on earth. If you are a sojourner, somebody who's just passing by, you wouldn't refurbish the house. You can do some cosmetic changes, but not everything. In another video, he was talking about why the biggest danger of Jehovah's people is materialism. And he said, beware of materialism. And he mentioned in the Lord's Prayer, he didn't say, give us a week's supply, not even a month's supply, but give us our daily bread. So the Jehovah's Witnesses leadership wants members to remain poor, to live a life of struggle. That's why they discourage high education. They discourage high-paying jobs. They want you to work part-time so that you can volunteer and you can be available for theocratic assignments, theocratic construction. Let's look at the names of the investment companies, what they mean, and registration. You have the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Ireland, which is registered in Dublin, Ireland. So this mirrors the US parent company, and it shows you a direct link with Warwick. So this is the main holding company for those investment companies. The purpose of the Watchtower Tract and Bible Society of Ireland is a main holding company for European operations. So the other company, the direct investment company, is called MINA Treasury Services Limited, registered Dublin, Ireland, address Watchtower House, Newcastle, CO, Wicklow. What's the meaning of MINA? MINA refers to the biblical parable of minas, money entrusted for wise stewardship, an ironic nod to a secretive wealth management. What is the purpose of MINA Treasury Services Limited? Treasury/asset management. It is structured like a private family office. There are also other referenced entities that may exist, but these two are confirmed in current filings. Additional layers are common for further privacy and flexibility. But why set up for-profit companies in Ireland? It includes the following: asset protection. For-profit shields religious lawsuits and government seizure. It's the safest way of protecting the Watchtower wealth. And you know, they are facing numerous lawsuits. The head of the legal department, Brumley, talks of more than 1,000 lawsuits around the world. And these are increasing. You have a lot of ex-JWs stalking those who were abused when they were young. So the Watchtower wealth is actually under threat, hence coming up with this secretive method of protecting that wealth. I don't know why they thought we would not know about it. The other thing why they've set it in Iran is because there is privacy. No public IRS filings like US non-profits. Directors or beneficiaries can be hidden. They don't need to be disclosed. So if Mr. Stephen Lett gets away with $100 million as pension, no one would even know because they don't have to disclose it. Meanwhile, many others in branch offices who have worked for over 70 years would just walk away with a good feeling that they served Jehovah for all those years. In fact, a lot of them were asked to retire in March this year. Here is a clip from Mark Sanderson.
Here's another recent development. In March 2025, the governing body invited branch committee members 80 years of age or older to consider their circumstances. As a result, some of these dear brothers have made a personal decision that they will no longer serve as branch committee members. Let's hear from a few.
Old age sneaks up on you, and you don't realize at times the limitations that you have. So this was a way for the governing body to help us to just accept the reality of old age and the consequences.
During my almost 77 years of full-time service, I have always experienced that Jehovah's guidance through the faithful slave brings joy and contentment.
I truly believe that this arrangement is an expression of Jehovah's deep love. Even if our assignments change in the future, regardless of what assignment it may be, will be an opportunity to enjoy our service while constantly thinking about pleasing Jehovah.
Then the other reason why they've used Ireland is profit distribution. Profits can legally be distributed to shareholders. That is the leadership and their heirs, probably even their helpers. They must be in it together because those are the foot soldiers of the governing body. Transferability. Shares and assets can be sold, transferred, or inherited, unlike non-profit assets, which must remain mission-bound. In other words, you cannot use it for other purposes other than the mission for which they were bought or acquired. The other reason is operational flexibility. No restrictions on investments, business dealings, or payouts. What is the bottom line? Even if the Watchtower collapses tomorrow, the leadership financial fortress is well protected. Assets can quietly be moved, profits can be distributed, and the system continues to operate with minimum public scrutiny. Let's look at the three-layer survival strategy. Number one, control through poverty. Members are discouraged from education, careers, well-paying jobs, creating dependence on the organization. Number two, wealth accumulation through sacrifice. Brooklyn Property sold 1.2 billion. I saw one figure that talked about 2 billion plus. Relentless donations and free labor funnels billions in Watchtower's hands. Now, in as much as the Watchtower condemns other Christian denominations, which they call Christendom, they boast that they don't pass plates. But meanwhile, they have boxes within, and they use guilt for the members to contribute. They even ask people to leave their estates to the Watchtower Society instead of leaving it to their own posterity. They ask members to make regular monthly contributions in the name of extending Jehovah's kingdom.
We're going to talk about money. Now, the fact is we never beg for money, but that's not to say we can't talk about money in Jehovah's organization, the earthly part. So is long-standing. There is a balance here. Going back to the Watchtower, I said a very long time ago, we have never considered it proper to solicit money for the Lord's cause after the common custom, referring to Christendom. It is our judgment that money raised by the various begging devices in the name of our Lord is offensive, unacceptable to him. It does not bring his blessing either upon the givers of the work or the work accomplished. So we do not need to be coerced into giving. We gladly use our money to support kingdom activities. And none of them should appear before Jehovah empty-handed. None. Now, he didn't say if you're well off, you've had a great year, as opposed to some that were poor, you still had issues back at that time, even though it was Jehovah's nation. But he said none should appear empty-handed. So that takes in all of us, whatever our circumstances are. Jehovah doesn't approve coming empty-handed. See, and what would help us to not come empty-handed, in this case back in Israel or in our time either? Notice verse 17, and this is a lot to think about. The gift that each one brings should be in proportion to the blessing that Jehovah your God has given you. So there we have it. You stop and reflect that they were supposed to do that, and we can do the same throughout the year. Reflect on the blessings that Jehovah God has given us. So profound thought there, and something to reflect on so that we don't find ourselves, when it comes to contributions on a monthly basis or whatever, empty-handed.
So members have to donate, not just money. They also have to donate free labor. In addition, they have to toil to recruit more more free laborers. And all that is considered as worship. You cannot worship God on your own. You can only worship him through Jehovah's organization. Number 3, wealth protection through complexity. Offshore moves to island for profit entities and multiple layers to keep money from lawsuits, government action, or organization collapse. The end game. This isn't about faith. It's preparing for accountability. Lawsuits, government investigations, and mass member exodus are all anticipated. So basically, this is a worst case scenario for the governing body. They have prepared for the worst. So the leadership has engineered a system, no matter what happens to the religion, their personal wealth and power survive. The real doomsday, the end they are preparing for, isn't Armageddon. It's the day the world discovers the truth. What do you think of the governing body secretive investment ventures? Do you agree with me that they are preparing for the worst case scenario? If you have not already subscribed and you are interested in more deep dives of this nature, kindly subscribe. If you want evidence that the Watchtower Society is actually in a collapsing mode, click on this link here.